Download and upload more than ever before with an ultra-fast fiber connection. With 3 simple steps, you can be the one with an SLT fiber optic connection. Visit slt.lk.
Tonight, great expectations. The appropriation bill for 2019 presented in Parliament.
We are creating a new breed of private enterprise where success through merit and the market operates on a rules-based level playing field.
Bridging the gap. The Auditor General outlines what's required to address the budget deficit.
And most of the policy also going basically ad hoc basis, and especially we need to address the corruption of the country.
Doubling down, the President is set to launch a brand new program to uproot illegal narcotics. And relinquishing more army-occupied land in the northern province to be released tonight, Tuesday, the 5th of March 2019.
From Ada Derana, this is Ada Derana First at 9 with Ndivari Amuata and Mahesh Jani. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
And a very good evening and welcome to Ada Derana 24 and to First at 9. Good evening, Ndivari.
Good evening, Mahesh. A big day for us here in Sri Lanka and for us newscasters and journalists too.
It's a busy day, I would
Certainly.
say. A very busy day for us to keep you updated on what else about the budget, which was anticipated for such a long time.
And I think our news bulletin will be all about the budget, and budget, of course.
Which is affecting you at the end of the day. How will it play out to your pocket? Will you have more money at the end of the day, or will you lose?
Well, I'm trying to still understand what kind of budget this is. Of course, the government says it's export-oriented to empower the poor, the people. But it seems that most of these sectors have been touched. The government has attempted to reach out to the emotions of certain sectors and almost all. But what is the idea with elections around the corner?
Is this an elections budget? That is one of the questions which is looming around. We will try to get reaction to all that. We will have one of the opposition members right here to react to this budget as well. But let's begin with the budget, of course. The much anticipated and delayed appropriation bill for the remainder of 2019 was presented to the Parliament by Minister of Finance Mangala Samaravira today.
Well, he read out the government's ambitious targets for various sectors, and surprisingly, there's relief to many of these sectors. However, the tax component seems to have been increased across several sectors.
The appropriation bill for the remainder of 2019 was presented to the Parliament by Minister of Finance Mangala Samaravira today. The much anticipated bill is based on the government's Enterprise Sri Lanka concessionary loan scheme and themed as empowering the people, nurturing the poor.
The beneficiaries of a crony capitalist system that thrived as a kleptocracy, which enriched those connected to the previous regime. They benefited from inflated government contracts, the cost of which are still being paid off today. Some of these oligarchs yearn for the return of a dictatorship. I've even heard some of them asking for a Hitler again, which funnels so much wealth into their companies and private accounts. This is not the private sector that we want to see as the engine of economic growth. We are creating a new breed of private enterprise where success through merit and the market operates on a rules-based level playing field. In last year's budget, I presented a program of economic liberalization buttressed by a robust safety net and state intervention to address market failures and ensure social justice. We will continue this framework and strengthen its key elements in this year as well.
The Finance Minister went on to point out that the acceleration of exports and other services of foreign income are crucial to sustainable economic growth and debt service capability.
In the 2018 budget, we announced the launch of the Export Market Access Scheme and the National Export Strategy. Support will continue this year with 400 million allocated for the Export Market Access Program and rupees 250 million will be allocated to the National Export Strategy. The government is committed to the strategy of a network of trade agreements to link into regional value chains. With the successful completion of the Singapore FTA, we will review progress in ongoing FTA negotiations with India, China and Thailand. A break into India and China market entry strategy are being prepared building on success stories from Sri Lankan enterprise in those markets.
The minister said the government's determination to pursue a liberal outward-oriented economy is more steadfast than ever and proposed to continue phasing out para-tariffs while reducing barriers of trade.
All HS codes with an import cess will be subject to a phasing out. In order to allow more time for industry adjustment, it is proposed that the para-tariff phase-out takes place over a 5-year period. I also propose an accelerated cess reduction program for intermediate goods that drive up costs in sectors such as the construction sector, tourism and manufacturing. These items will have cess phased out over a 3-year period. In this process, it is essential to support domestic industries that will face greater competition from imports. We will also ensure that 10% of all HS codes considered to be sensitive items will not be subject to a complete para-tariff phase-out. In order to make recommendations on implementing the Trade Adjustment Program, I propose to establish a Trade and Productivity Commission under the Ministry of Development, Strategies and International Trade. I propose to allocate rupees 500 million over 2 years for the implementation of the Trade Adjustment Program.
The minister also said that the backbone of a deep and liquid capital market is a robust security market and therefore Sri Lanka needs to develop capital markets beyond bank financing.
We will introduce scripless Sri Lanka development bonds and enable coupon stripping of treasury bonds. We will also work with the CBSL to invest in the necessary infrastructure towards its end. While Sri Lanka achieved its best over FDI in 2017 and 2018, it is essential to further expand investments into the country. Therefore, an incentive package to attract high-value investment is proposed. This includes a significant capital allowance of up to 150% of investment value and removal of upfront taxes for investments over $50 million, $100 million and $1 billion. To support the local construction companies, no foreign construction company will be allowed to tender for government projects unless the project is fully foreign financed without forming a joint venture with a local construction or a consultancy company. This will support the local companies to benefit from the transfer of technology. The cost of construction will reduce with the proposed para-tariff revisions and the removal of NBT on the main construction contractor. In order to further support property development sector, I propose to grant residential visas for 3 years to foreign nationals who invest $400,000 or more in condominiums. This process will be implemented this year. The residential visa will not be valid when the foreigner exits from this investment. Cess on imported construction material will be reduced by 30%.
The Finance Minister meanwhile said that government strategy to create sustainable livelihoods will be expanded to achieve reconciliation through economic empowerment.
To fast-track development in the north and the east, we propose to establish the Palmyra Fund with an investment of rupees 5 billion spread over 2 years. We invite well-wishers, philanthropists, especially in the diaspora, to contribute to this fund, which will be administered by the Treasury. The funds will be routed through the government agents for the development activities on the war-affected areas. To facilitate more efficient trade links between farmers and the markets, 10 satellite economic centers connected to a central economic center will be established in the northern province. Communicating our reconciliation efforts in a stronger and more meaningful manner is critical for sustainability. I propose to allocate rupees 200 million to the SCRM for communication and awareness programs in this regard.
Well, the debate on the second reading of the budget will take place from tomorrow until the 12th of this month, while the debate on the third reading will take place from the 13th of this month to the 5th of April. The final voting on the appropriation bill will take place on the 5th of April.
Now, during today's budget reading, there were several proposals that were tabled covering different areas in the country's economy and society. This included the proposal to increase the salaries of armed forces and granting special housing loan schemes for migrant workers.
Under the budget allocations, the allowance for differently abled individuals increased from 3,000 rupees to 5,000 rupees per month, for which a total of 4,320 million rupees has been allocated for this purpose. Minister of Finance Mangala Samaraveera also announced the launch of the Scholarship for Educational Excellence Fund to facilitate the country's top performers at physical science, biological science, technology, commerce and arts at the advanced level examinations held each year to pursue their undergraduate education at top universities such as Harvard, MIT, Oxford and Cambridge. The first batch will be chosen from the 2019 A-level batch in August. In the meantime, 2,410 million rupees has been allocated to complete the canals and headworks of several major projects this year. This include Dadru-Oya project, the Manik Ganga Reservoir project and the Morana Reservoir project, which will directly benefit almost 21,000 families engaging in agriculture. Furthermore, the national building tax on foreign currency receipts of tourist hotels registered with Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority will also be removed. Highlighting the limited participation of women in the workforce, the minister stated that the budget will facilitate in supporting working mothers by allowing 50% of the salary cost of the mandatory 3 months maternity leave granted as an additional deduction in calculating their corporate taxation, subject to a maximum of 20,000 rupees per employee per month. In the meantime, a home sweet home loan scheme was proposed for newly wedded couples, which provide a concessionary loan up to 10 million rupees at a 6-point interest rate with a repayment period of 25 years. Meanwhile, Dream Home loans will be introduced for registered migrant workers under Enterprise Sri Lanka, where they will be able to obtain a loan of 10 million rupees, where the government will bear 75% of interest cost and where the tenure of the loan will be a maximum of 15 years with a 2-year grace period. Under the budget for this year, Enterprise Sri Lanka project is to be expanded to provide concessionary loans of up to 500 million rupees to facilitate young entrepreneurs. In the meantime, a special allowance of 2,500 rupees will be paid from 1st of July to all government employees. According to the proposed budget, in order to streamline the Samurdhi program in a more effective manner, 10,000 billion rupees has been allocated to facilitate the addition of around 600,000 deserving households. Meanwhile, allowances of armed forces is expected to be increased, with commando allowance to be increased to 5,000 rupees and housing rent allowance for security force personnel to be increased by 100%. Stating that the suicide ambulance service has been a success, the minister highlighted that 300 base stations for the service will be set up in 2 years at a cost of 600 million rupees. Meanwhile, three-wheelers will be supported through a concessionary loan titled Mini Taxi Electric Three-Wheeler under Enterprise Sri Lanka loan scheme to be upgraded into electric three-wheelers and small cars. The government will bear 75% of the interest rate. Furthermore, revision of excise duty and implementation of luxury tax on motor vehicles will be effective from 6th of this month. The revision of the excise duty will have a minimal impact on smaller personal vehicles. In the meantime, import tax on petrol vehicles below 800cc capacity increased by 150,000 rupees, while vehicles below 1000cc will be increased by 175,000 rupees. Meanwhile, the import tax on petrol vehicles below 1300cc capacity will be increased by 500,000 rupees. Furthermore, the toll on expressway will be increased by 100 rupees during peak hours effective from 1st of April. It has also been proposed to increase the tax on casinos from 200 million rupees to 400 million rupees. Moreover, a casino entrance fee of $50 per person will be charged effective from 1st June, and the license fee of casinos will be increased from 200 million rupees to 400 million rupees per annum and Regino Games to 1 million rupees per annum. The casino turnover levy will be charged at 15%, and these new charges will be effective from 1st of April. In the meantime, excise duty on locally manufactured alcohol and a tax on cigarettes will be increased from midnight today. A nation-building tax of 3.5% will be introduced in place of existing stamp duty on all foreign payments made by using credit cards and debit cards. Recognizing the costs inherent in the tourism sector, Minister Samaravira said that the nation-building tax on foreign currency receipts by tourist hotels registered by the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority will be lifted, and it is proposed to make it mandatory for travel agents to remit funds to hotels in US dollars when invoiced in US dollars. A proposal to remove custom import duty and cess on go-karts and the tyres used in go-karts was also brought in. Under the budget, the Office of the Missing Persons will be adequately resourced to support families of all missing persons island-wide, including the MIAs of the armed forces and the police who have obtained certificates of absence. They will be provided 6,000 rupees per month until the Office of Reparations is established and their cases are resolved.
Meanwhile, various views were expressed on the budget following the parliamentary session, with opposition leader Mahinda Rajapaksa saying that this budget will exert much pressure on the ordinary people. JVP leader Andrukumara Dissanayaka meanwhile said that they have already decided to vote against the 2019 appropriation bill.
Most people expected a freebies budget, this being an election year, but that has not happened. It has been a fairly responsible approach to the budget, taking into consideration the dire economic situation that the country is in. So to that extent, on the face of it, we welcome the approach. Specifically, we welcome the special allocation of 5,000 million for Northeast development. This is something that we have been asking for recovery of war-affected areas that have been neglected for so long. So this will be used, we hope, in a very responsible way, particularly to implement projects that can give rise to job opportunities for the young people in those areas. One concern we have, though, is that in the past years, implementation of budgetary proposals has been very slack. And we hope that that will be corrected this year, and that most of the proposals will be actually implemented on the ground.
The budget is very bad. People will realize it when they have to pay tax. A small allowance was given for the public sector. While an allowance is given for the army, the police is completely forgotten. This budget is only a burden for the general public. This budget is only another extension of destructive economic policy of this government, and the JVP has already decided to vote against this budget.
Well, the Auditor General, Gamini Vijayasinghe, says that if the government is to address the budget deficit, more work needs to be done to address corruption. Speaking to First at 9, he also went on to say that consistent policies play a crucial role formulating an effective budget.
There is no aim target, and always there are big variation from basically income side and the same time expenditure side. End of the day, revenue basically not like as expected, and the most of the policy also going basically ad hoc basis, and especially we need to address the corruption of the country, but I don't see that any proper addressing to mitigate this issue.
Meanwhile, the Auditor General stressed that the lack of accurate data hinders the ability to formulate a realistic budget.
So basically, if you talk about the budget or talk about the financial statement of the Ministry of Finance as a whole, total asset base of the government institutions, at the same time expenditure based on the whole country is a huge wage. Because that nobody knows about the actual assets available to the country or government, and still we don't know exact liability of the country, what is the loan total amount payable by the country. So that is one of the big challenge today. So that should be addressed rather than doing some sort of investment or improvement of the country. We need actual data. Now we think about the zero-based budgeting, but it won't happen in the country. So each and every sections to be analyzed, and not for as a whole total budget, but in detail we must go to the down level and see whether there is any expenditure can be cut it down. In that sense, the budgeted expenditure can be reduced drastically in the country. Actually, there is no comparison or no proper planning with the country situation. Planning is the biggest issue in the country, so we have to proper planning system. Then budget deficit can be reduced drastical way.
Well, let's get more reaction to that story and also in generally to the appropriation bill of 2019. Joining us here at Studio 24 is parliamentarian Namal Rajapaksa. Namal, welcome to Studio 24.
Thank you.
We've been trying to get you for quite some time. Finally, I think you are here at the right time. So let me just start asking you the first question. What is your initial reaction to this appropriation bill which was presented in Parliament today?
Well, we all expected it to be an election budget and, give some concessions and more grants to the people so that, the economy will start flowing. But unfortunately, it turned up to be the other way around. But I do admit there were some policy statements based on education, infrastructure, especially for rural areas, for development that is very positive. But the question is whether they will do it practically on ground, because we have heard these kind of stories from this government for the last 4 years, and this is the fifth budget this government is proposing. And at the same time, at one time they were talking about 2020 economic goals and the 2025. Now it has gone up to 2030. The consistency is a major question that this government has to answer. So as what we see from this budget, the capital expenditure has been cut down tremendously, and at the same time the taxation has increased. So what government is trying to do to increase their tax revenue and also at the same time cut down their capital expenditure, that way they may be able to keep up with the conditions that they have agreed with certain agencies or countries or organizations to keep the budget deficit below 3.5% at the end of 2020.
Well, are you suggesting that this is a budget that is based on the needs and demands of international financial agencies such as the IMF, the World Bank?
Yeah, of course. I mean, from the looks of it, I mean, any government who is looking to go for election, and at the same time, a government that hasn't delivered anything for the last 4.5 years, will look to have a more economic growth in the country, more infrastructure-driven economy for at least for next 6 to 7 months. But unfortunately, we don't see any sort of investment coming into the economic infrastructure development.
But are you also of the view that this is a good budget in the sense it's a policy statement?
Yeah, of course. I mean, if you look at the education and also giving loans for the GCA level students to get into universities, and at the same time, the most popular is the loan for the young married couples. So those kind of things are attractive. But unfortunately, the question that again comes is whether this government can deliver that. All these proposals were in Mahinda Rajapaksa's government as well. If you look at President Rajapaksa's budgets, all these proposals from giving a milk packet or the glass of milk for rural schools, and the infrastructure development of even this the toilet development program they are talking about. Those were done during that Kirula. Those things were done. Those things were in our economic programs for ever since 2005 to 2015. But unfortunately, this government came into power and stopped all these projects. So after 4 years, they have realized, what they have done is wrong. So now they are looking at restarting these programs. Now they are looking at restarting what we did to the Datakirula or what we did to Gamanaguma and Divinaguma, Jatika Savia. So now they have realized the mistakes they have done for the last 4.5 years, but unfortunately that's a bit too late now. But if the government can implement these things for within next 6 months, because as we all know, at the end of the year we have to go for a presidential election according to the constitution, unless they come up with some idea of postponing it, which this government is very much capable of postponing elections. Unless that, they have to go for election. But can they deliver? That's the question. Within 6 to 7 months, what they couldn't do for the last 4 years.
So coming on to what you said a little while ago in your beginning statement, you thought that it was an election budget, but are you of the same view right now after hearing what?
Well, no. Now it's more of a budget that to satisfy most of the agencies that has promised funding to cut down the budget deficit.
Having said that, I think, as you very rightly suggested too, that there has been a lot of allocations diverted and directed towards several segments of society, be it the youth, be it women. There is a requirement to increase women participation in boards, and then an export-oriented budget. But I'd like to divert your attention to the debt stock, because this is a constant accusation by the government towards the opposition towards you all, who has been in the previous regime previously. And I think today during his speech, Finance Minister Mangala Samaraweera said that credit rating downgrades during the October to December period resulted in the external borrowing costs surging into double-digit levels, and also the government had to refinance $5.9 billion of external debt. Now, talking about debt here, there is a large expenditure that the government is looking at during 2019, but they also say they will not finance this with loans. How are we looking at that? What are you suggesting with the taxes? Is this the right way forward?
No, because see, the government is trying to cover up the mismanagement of the economy by blaming the previous government. If you look at when President Rajapaksa handed over the government in 2015, January, the dollar was 130. And our borrowings were on 130 rupees at a dollar. But today, it's 170, 180. So this difference, who's going to pay? The people has to pay. The difference that they're talking about is purely because of the mismanagement of the government, not because that the government has lended money and they're not being capable of paying it. The Hambantota port is the best example for that. We managed to pay up to $600 million from the port revenue, not from the people's tax. But what they did was privatizing the port, taking that money, take the loan to the central bank or the finance ministry, and now they have to pay the loan from the people's money. But even that, we lended or we hand over the government at that time at dollar going at 130 rupees average. But today they have to pay 180, 175, 180 rupees average. So who is going to pay this difference? It's the people of this country from this tax money that they have to pay. And they were talking about highly appreciating about reducing concession loans for certain areas. They don't have to give concession loans if they grow the economy and maintain the bank interest at 8%, which was during 2015, right? And the concession loan now, it's almost equal to the average loan during President Rajapaksa's government. So purely their mismanagement cost this. But now what they try to do is cover up the mismanagement by bringing various arguments. But the best example is Honorable Wickremesinghe's statement in Vietnam, where himself stated there is no Chinese debt trap in this country. But 4 years ago, during the presidential campaign, himself said there's a debt trap. But 3 years down the line, he goes to Vietnam for an investment forum or economic forum. The same prime minister, then opposition leader, now prime minister says, no, there is no debt trap. So now they can't come to the parliament and talk of debt trap in the parliament.
Indeed. So can we safely say that the joint opposition will be voting against this budget?
Yeah, of course we will vote against this budget because we want an economic driven budget. We want country to prosper. We want more employment to be created. We don't want people to get loans and not be able to pay. We have seen how this government is trying to build houses and all those infrastructure by loans to the people, and people are suffering because they can't pay. People can pay their loans if the economy is doing well, if money circulation is there, if employment is there, if they can sell their crop, if they can find employment. We don't mind people getting loans. But the concession loans they are talking, I'm reiterating this for a reason, because they talk highly of giving a loan for 8% interest, 6% interest. But during President Rajapaksa's government, average citizen in this country would have got a loan for 8% from any bank.
Right.
Indeed. With that, well, we have to leave it at that. Thank you very much, Parliamentarian Namal Rajapaksa. I should say that you're eligible for the home sweet home loan.
I'm looking forward for that, actually.
And apply for that.
I told my brother also, now get ready to apply.
Well, let's take a short commercial break. We'll be right back right here on First at 9. Stay with us.
You are watching Sri Lanka's #1 news channel. This is Other Derana 24.
Welcome back. Security forces had released another block of lands in the Valakkam North high security zone for the use of the people. The land released documents were officially handed over by Commander of the Security Force Headquarters in Jaffna, Major General Darshana Hettiarachchi, to the government agent in Jaffna, Vikahangan, yesterday at the Divisional Secretariat in Tellipalli. Private lands with 3 acres and 120 perches in Maidiliar-Thurai North Gramaniladari Division, as well as 1 acre and 120 perches in Palale East Gramaniladari Division have been released to the public. 13 acres and 155.2 perches in the Maidili North Gramaniladari Division, as well as state lands with 40 perches in Mailidi-Thurai North Gramaniladari Division were also handed over by the security forces yesterday.
Meanwhile, discussions were held between the governor of the Northern Province, Professor Suren Raghavan, and commander of the Security Forces headquarters in Jaffna, Major General Darshana Hettiarachchi, regarding further release of army-occupied lands in the north. The governor had assured that as per the instructions of President Maithripala Sirisena, all lands which can be released will be reassigned to their original owners. It was reported that officials from Security Forces headquarters as well as the Secretariat of the Governor of Northern Province had joined in the discussion yesterday.
And we take a short commercial break on First at 9. Do stay with us.
You are watching Sri Lanka's #1 news channel. This is Other Derana 24.
Welcome back. In your business news, the all-share price index closed at 0.28% firmer at 5,770.57 today, edging up from its lowest close since the 28th of November last year, which was hit on Friday.
Meanwhile, the turnover was 1.2 billion rupees, more than last year's daily average of 834 million rupees. With that, let's now move to a detailed report as to how the stock market performed during the day today.
With the presentation of the budget to the Parliament, the secondary market yield curve remained almost unchanged, with overall market witnessing thin volumes as market participants were seen waiting on the sideline, while equity market was seen reverting to the positive sentiment. Distilleries and John Keells were the main contributors to the overall turnover, with the index reaching an intraday high of 5,783 and closed at 5,771, gaining 16 points. A net foreign outflow was witnessed amidst moderate foreign participation.
Well, in the very before we end the bulletin today, we got some good news to share with our viewers.
Certainly, 2019 has been a lot of good opportunities and news for us here at TV Derana and Other Derana 24. TV Derana has won the People's Youth Choice TV Channel of the Year at the Slim Nielsen Awards, which is underway, and of course, we're looking forward for more awards.
Exactly, not that award. We will have a full report of that tomorrow. But for now, thank you very much for joining us. I'm Mahesh Johnny.
And I'm Indhivari Amwatha. Have a very pleasant evening tonight.